Hello everyone, my name is and I'll be showing you guys my finals of what I've learned in Modeling and Rendering 1. In this final, I'll be showing you my marquetry I've been working on over the past few weeks of the semester. Throughout these slides, I'll be showing you the wireframes and the non-textured photos of the scene. So here's my collage of what I was using throughout the scene. I was listening to the lecture and an idea struck up my head to recreate something I've always had a thought of, and that was nature. Had vibrant colors, which can be pleasing to the eye if it was done correctly. I decided to take on the challenge to make a marquetry and make it a vibrant scene. And here's what my general overview looks like. I'm pretty proud because I was able to pull it off in such a short amount of time, mixing it with a part-time job. It took about at least 3 to 6 hours every day to work on something and finish the task every day. I do want to know that this scene does have a ton of geometry due to the use of foliage painting done in Maya brushes. And here's my first angled view of the scene. As you can see, areas that have heavy amounts of foliage contains a lot of geometry. And I've done it in my best ability to use the reduce tool to cut down on geometry. And then here's the non-textured of the first view. I used Maya's paint brush and attached the brush stroke to the curves created using the EP curve tool. Doing so will result in a high amount of polygons, which is later reduced by using the reduce tool in the mesh menu. By using the reduce tool in Maya, I was able to keep the textures on the foliage and keep the general shape. In the future, I'll create leaves that are more optimized to be applied along a curve. And then the second view, I chose my baskets and a variety of fruits, which contains the cantaloupes, apples, and coconuts. And then I utilized the quick strategy of projecting UVs along the planar axis and flipping one of the UV shells to minimize its theme, which works very well for both of the fruits. And then here's one of the first close-ups of my props I created in Maya and painted in Substance Painter. Broke the model down to simple steps. It was starting off with a cylinder and then slowly adding details on it, such as the rings and poking holes on it. Hardest part of this is creating the holes and properly keeping the clean topology. And in the model, the corners of the holes are connected to the inner vertices of the neighboring edge. And then this next close-up, I created the tire by adding subdivisions to the height of the cylinder. And after creating the subdivisions, I would take the second inner edges and rotate them parallel to the flat edge of the tire, creating that tread shape. And then I extruded those chevrons out. And then I would create the inner loops that would support the edges that would normally be inside the rim. And at this point, I had to understand the basic anatomy of a tire to make sure it makes sense in the real world. And then this is the last close-up I have of my models. This model was tedious one of all. As you can see, the top left is the smooth version of the model. Before subdividing it, I broke it down to simple shapes like a cube or cylinder for the backrest. And I tried messing around with the live objects to use the quad build tool. It was annoying to set up, but after getting the hang of it, the tool was straightforward and you would use the optimize / cleanup tool to fix any duplicate vertices. And then here's some of the textures for my barrel as my sticker, and I drew that in Photoshop and implemented it as a sticker. And then for the last part of this final, the toughest part about this was unwrapping the UVs of each prop I've made. The ones in particular that were complicated was the basket and chair. The more rounded off surfaces, the more complicated it is for me to sew and cut the edges. I put it to my best of my ability to have each shell utilize the most amount of space possible efficiently. And then the biggest takeaway from this final was taking it step by step. Although the ideas seemed complicated, it was important to not make myself feel so overwhelmed and I actually felt joy seeing I was able to create an entire scene in the last few weeks we had remaining of this semester.